We want to make it as interactive as possible, so please turn on your cameras, unmute yourselves, and feel free to ask any questions that you would like, or to kind of share your experience within the area. So over to you, Kenneth.
Thanks very much, Brenda. Hi everybody, thanks for joining. I've put together a few charts for the session and I'll start there. So just let me share. Brenda, just checking if I need to record or if you've taken care of it.
I have taken care of it there.
Okay. Okay, let me know if that's coming over okay, folks.
Yeah, it's starting to come through there.
Okay, great. Minimize the chat window here. Okay, great. So this this session was something you know, Emily asked us to run, how to adopt partner programs to support SaaS offers and the monthly recurring revenue model that we heard a lot about in the last discussion. So I suppose I kind of, to get people thinking about, what are the drivers forcing partner programs to change. So probably in, certainly I've been working in the channel 20 odd years, and never has anything changed as much as the advent of cloud technology, changing the whole ecosystem, if you like. So there's a lot, we could spend probably many hours on this topic, but these are some of the drivers that came to mind when I was putting a couple of charts together. So cloud technology has changed the product landscape, if you like. So how companies develop their solutions. Channel Mechanics, for example, our own company, we're actually a born in the cloud company. We don't have anything on site at all, basically. Everything is completely 100% cloud. Now, not everybody has that luxury. So one of the things we'll talk a little bit about is, that transition. How do you, build that into your program? Because one of the, major challenges out there is, how do you cope with your on-premise, if you like, versus your cloud technology? As you do that transition, your partner program has to cope with both at the same time. So kind of back to the start again, the fact that the cloud is enabling so many companies to spring up, new technology companies to develop new products, and existing companies to migrate to the cloud. It's made the world a very different place. It's made the go-to-market models very different. They now need to align with those types of products. So thus comes along this concept of a monthly recurring revenue model. So we call it, XaaS, or, you see everything from, software as a service to product as a service to, XaaS, I suppose, as we call it now. But these offerings are much more cost efficient. And all being software, the margins, can be very high. And that in turn has a big impact on the channel, because, what was once a very expensive on-premise project now becomes a pretty, I won't say low cost, but certainly a lot lower cost than it was previously. And that is one of the big challenges partners face. So again, on the previous topic, a lot of people ask questions about, how do you reward or remunerate partners to cope with that loss, if you like, or that chasm? How did they get across that chasm from what was once, a very big, $1 million deal, and that's now no more than 10K a month, basically, on an ongoing basis. Now, there's pros and cons or ups and downs to that. But one of the big reasons all of the world of tech is moving to cloud or the monthly recurring revenue, valuations of companies, I don't think it was mentioned in the last session, but really a lot of it does come down to that, is the valuations of companies, the multiplier, if you're selling as a SaaS or selling as a service or working off the monthly recurring revenue, they're massively different than somebody that's not. So you're talking about, for companies that are not, you're talking about valuations of, 1, 2, 3x, whereas you see SaaS companies being sold for anything from, 10x upwards on revenue. Once you do make that decision to start moving across, adoption is critical. We see that ourselves. The last part of the discussion there on the previous panel was around, customer success managers. While it's, cloud is super easy to develop technology in, super easy to deploy compared to what it was previously. It's also super easy for customers to adopt it and super easy for customers to walk away. So, customer adoption is critical to success in the world of monthly recurring revenue. So selling a 3-year deal for a partner is all well and good, but if the customer can walk away easily after 6 months, it's not such a great deal after all. And I suppose in the world of consumer, if we think of something, like a Netflix or whatever, it's so easy to turn it on or off. I'm not saying every technology is that easy, but it's along that kind of principle. The other thing is we've seen the evolution of the partner ecosystem. So, we kind of go back years, we had 3-4 different types of partners. Now we have probably 10-12 different types of partners. And we see that evolving very quickly. And those partners have come about because of how easy it is to either sell or refer cloud type business. And some of them have come around because they've decided not to sell anymore, and they've changed what they want to do. They feel it's not worth their while. They've changed to, okay, I'll kind of keep the business I have and I'll move to accepting your type referral type business. And one other big thing that's important, I suppose, is we see the buying behavior and the decision makers have changed. Whereas one time it would have been maybe the CIO making a decision about buying technology. It's very much a business, or it's very much moving towards a business person is now making that decision. I think I saw something published recently from Forrester that go back 5 years or something along those lines. 80% of technology decisions were made by purchase decisions were made by the CIO. Now it's 80% that are made by the business. And the last one I kind of touched on already a little bit was around the transition, and we'll chat about this a little bit more in a couple of minutes. So I don't have too many more charts, guys, and I'll go through them fairly quickly because I'm really interested to kind of get the round table going. So I mentioned there are partner types. So just, very simply, back in 10 years ago or whatever, we had, very simple partner ecosystem. Nowadays, that's much more complex. You have all of these different types of partners. I'm not going to call them all out, but it's, there's a lot going on out there, I suppose. And as a result of that, your partner program needs to cater for these types of partners. You may not, and most people won't deal with them all, but you'll certainly deal with a lot more than you used to deal with if you're adopting your technology to to follow the lines of the monthly recurring revenue model. Again, partner programs 10 years ago, fairly simple as well, typically driven off things like revenue and training. Now we see all kinds of different elements in your programs. And again, I'm not going to go through all these. Happy to share the charts afterwards if anybody would like to have them. Just ping myself or Brenda and we'll happily share them. But really your partner program now is almost like programs within programs or layers of programs. So kind of coming to the nub of it, and this is my last chart. What are the characteristics of your partner program that now needs to be put in place to support the world of SaaS or monthly recurring revenue? So, at least, in the area we work in, and it's mostly with tech companies, tiers are still relevant, but definitely the achievement rules have changed. So whereas traditionally it was things like revenue and training made up, where do you sit in the gold, silver, bronze type ecosystem, you now need to, if you're selling in SaaS, because the sales motion is different, the valuations of those sales is different, and certainly the partner ecosystem is different, you need to start to take into account things like, and these are just some samples I have here, folks, but things like customer adoption is important, referral type business is important, net new logos is important, renewal rates, somebody mentioned that on the last thing, and we see that's never been more important than certainly in the COVID crisis. A lot of companies' lifeblood has just been, making sure to get the renewals over the line. All of these things, are now seen as key contributors towards your program tiers. So, if you're thinking about your partner program and you're evolving your partner program, you need to start to take all of these levers into account. So, say we run or automate the partner programs for lots and lots of vendors, and we see things like revenue is still very important, trading is still very important, but we might see anything between 3 and 5 or 6 different attributes now being taken in, number of deal registrations, opportunities created, percentage customer renewal rates, how much referrals have I got, net new logos, things like that are all now being taken into account, and they're contributing factors towards which tier I end up on the program. Now, the tiers themselves, when you achieve the tiers, a lot of the rules don't really change beyond what they would have been previously. So, if I get to gold, my discount, I obviously get a higher discount. That kind of stuff hasn't changed, or at least in what we've been working on and have seen, hasn't changed a lot. The types of, how much MDF dollars you get, etc. What you get to do in those does indeed change. The types of activities, if you like, that you get to do in MDF does change. So again, kind of building those layers and tiers into the actual programs within the overall program. One area that has changed a lot, and we actually ran a webinar on this not too long ago, was in the area of incentives. We definitely see a lot of change in the incentivization world because of the different partner types, because of the need to influence or drive behavior with partners to try and migrate them to your SaaS type products. So very significant payouts. In the world of tech again, where we would have paid incentives or rebates in the order of, depending on the particular vertical, if you like, we see 1 to 5% payouts, and in the old world, they're now kind of in the order of 15 to 25% payouts. So huge difference. And the idea behind that is helping the partner with the transition. We've seen vendors we work with that have moved from on-premise to cloud, and they would have done things like, for the first 2 to 3 years, the incentives they would pay out to partners would be huge, and then start to level them off once they've made that transition across the that chasm of needing to get rewarded or paid, so that they can sustain their business. The partner types. So again, I kind of touched on this already, but the program rules need to be able to flex depending on the partner types. So if I'm, let's say I'm not a standard, but I'm a resale partner, a very important partner in the world of resale. I still have a lot of the same types of programs attributes. Obviously, I'm going to get paid out a lot more on the SaaS piece than I did on the on-premise. Even though it's a smaller deal, the value is smaller overall. My margin and my reward is greater to influence them to move across. But if I decide to become a referral partner, then I don't get any of those benefits. But what I do get is a percentage for a deal that closes that I refer. So a program within a program, if you like. And I mentioned this already, the program layers. So ensuring that your overall program includes those sub-programs. It was always like this, even in the old world, but it's got a lot more complex now. That when I'm a gold partner, I come in, but I could be a gold referral partner versus a gold resale partner versus a distributor. And when I come into your platform that houses all your programs, I get to see very different things. I get rewarded very differently depending on my sales motion and what I'm incentivized to do. So if you think about it, there's an awful lot more moving parts than there was previously. A lot to kind of take into account when you're designing or modeling your partner program. But all in all, same as was before, ease of doing business is absolutely critical. So you have to provide partners with an easy to use dashboard or portal that kind of can quickly and easily show them their status. You can't resort to the old model of spreadsheets and emails, etc. It just doesn't cut it, I suppose. So I'll stop there and open it up to the audience for thoughts, feedback, questions. I'm sure people have lots on their mind in this area.
So yeah, feel free to unmute yourself, turn your camera on, and ask Kenneth a question if anything is on your mind. And obviously, we would appreciate everyone to get involved. So if you have any thoughts on a particular question or any experience, do let us know. Kenneth, I might kick the first one off just in case people are a little bit shy. So
Yeah.
as you know, when people registered, they had the option to submit a question if they had. So I have a question here from Stephanie. Stephanie asked, what things should you consider if you have an existing resale program and you are adding SaaS into the mix?
Yeah, why don't you start me with an easy one, Brenda? Yeah, that's kind of tricky. It's the trickiest of it all because, and it's probably the most common as well, because we don't get the luxury of, or very few get the luxury of a greenfield site. So we've done probably, a number of these over the last probably 3 years. It takes quite a bit of work. I covered a little bit of it already, but specifically, you don't, you have a partner program, everything is good in the world, face the usual challenges, and now the cloud came along, and now my company is developing all of these, really cool new products, being delivered as a service, and we've switched our revenue model to monthly recurring, and we want to get our partners to buy into that. You're almost competing with yourself for a period of time in the beginning because you have an on-premise, I'll just call it an on-premise and a cloud solution. So you're kind of almost competing with yourself in the beginning because partners are used to selling the old way, they're comfortable with it, but you've got to convince them now to start selling, parts of the new world. Vendors might only start off with 5% of their revenue is in the cloud. So, it's hard to kind of get everybody's attention to focus and start to make that switch. So when you're adjusting your program, you need to start to take into account some of what I mentioned. I'm going to make it more attractive and make it easier for you. If you start selling cloud, I'm going to make it easier for you to get to gold. Okay. And when you get to gold, Mr. Partner, guess what? You get an additional 5% discount. I might even adjust the margins higher on the cloud. So you're kind of incentivizing them to move to cloud, even though they're still selling the on-premise. And your program almost becomes two programs in one program. Specific real life examples, Stephanie, are things like the rebates or incentives, as we call them. We've seen those used, over and again with vendors that have just gone on the journey you asked about to support their partners in that kind of I don't know what the right word is, cash chasm, if you like, or when they start to see their revenues, they might have the same amount of deals, but their actual revenue, falls off because the value of those deals is less than it was before, and the way they get paid might be on a monthly or quarterly basis. Now, we all talk about monthly recurring revenue all the time, but in reality, most customers still pay in bigger chunks than just monthly. It's not unusual for people to even pay a year, but companies still have to recognize that on the books on a monthly basis. So they don't have the big lump sum, the 100,000 deal that they would have got for an on-premise solution versus the 5K a month that they get for the SaaS world or the monthly recurring revenue model. So they're the types of things. I hope I'm answering, Stephanie. There's a million different rules or different things you need to take into account, but some of those are, around adapting your program to have the levers to say that if you're selling cloud, I'm going to reward you or get you up to the higher tiers much quicker. So if you think about it like, a points, if you used a points-based model for your program rather than just revenue and training and all these other things. So if you say for every dollar you make on MRR, I'm going to reward you 3x points that I would for on-premise. That's that's not an unusual way that we've seen people go to achieve it.
Okay, thanks, Kenneth. Does anyone else want to kind of give their viewpoint on it?
Yeah, Ken, hi folks, it's Marek here from Dallas. Just a quick question, if I may, Ken, specifically going back to the chart that put a smile on my face where you talked about the bronze and the silver and the gold, right? I mean, I recall those days all too well. But as you flipped over the chart, you talked about the different partner programs, specifically the influencers, the affiliate and cloud and so on and so forth. Yeah. I guess the question for me would be, how much of an overhead has that added in terms of the overall complexity? Because now, have you found that you had to add additional resources, additional tools, additional functionalities in order to be able to manage and maintain all of those separately? Because you've got to have some sort of a tracking mechanism, right? How much overhead have you had as a result of that?
Yeah, no. Again, thank you for jumping in. Great question. Yeah, so not there are a lot of them. There's no doubt, and more kind of spinning up depending on the models and calling themselves new names. Some of them are resale partners transformed into something else. We see quite a bit of that. I'll give you an example. A lot of classic VARs that have decided, I'm too old, I'm not going on this journey, I'm just going to transition and I'll refer you my end customers until I retire and I'm done with it. But back to your question specifically, yes, you do. There is overhead, but you can be clever about it. If you think about your partner program in the right way and you sit down and spend a bit of time designing your program and deciding which of these types of partners am I bothered with. Okay, I still want my sales type partners for sure, otherwise I'm going to not survive. But I'm very interested in the influence and the referral type partners as well. Okay, we definitely see lots of those guys popping up and making a lot of money out of it, but also bringing a lot of good deals into the vendors as well. So, but it does make your program a lot more complex, and unless you have the automation in place to support that type of stuff, it's a nightmare. Your spreadsheets are just simply going to explode. It's not maintainable or sustainable or whatever the right word is. It's just not possible to do it without some kind of a platform or a tool, or have somebody build in-house automation, whatever way you want to go about it. It's just too hard. And then because you need to mark. If I'm a reseller partner, I have to have a referral partner. I have to give that referral partner some way to refer that business to me, or I might even redirect them to one of my partners. But you can't do that by an email or a spreadsheet, or guess what? It'll get lost or untracked, and you'll get a bill down the road that you didn't even know you were going to get. So I suppose to summarize the answer, you do need to build it into your program, and you need to have that program, somehow automated. And the data piece of it that you touched on, that is very, very important, because, the program won't be successful, or the execution won't be successful without those data points, and you can't measure or report on it. So absolutely, it does add some overhead. Okay. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I was gonna bring in a question too right before him that kind of is almost the same question, but when you actually look at it from that, how do you build the tracking mechanism to support those models and actually receive proof and say, okay, partner, yes, you influenced, but how did you influence and how do I know you influenced? And I'm almost thinking like the best ways to do it would be to create those extra incentive offerings or spiff offerings where they actually have to claim or somehow give you proof of something that they're doing something in order to build that into moving up in a tier.
Yeah. So if I'm an influence partner, or I'm going to include an influence partner in my program, and I'm going to decide, we run a couple of these for different vendors. So, without saying the exact names, I'll give you, a real life example without saying the name of the vendor. Okay. So they kind of pay out between 6 and 12% of the deal to that influence partner if it closes, okay? And how do they decide whether I'm going to pay out 6 or 12 is kind of, to answer your question, they use our platform basically to do that. But regardless of that, they had to come up with, how am I going to decide, to your exact question, how do you decide how much that guy or girl influenced the deal, right? So what they do is they make them, log on to the portal, to make the introduction, if you like, or the referral, and then they decide by how much that person contributes. Did they set up the meeting? How many meetings have they been in? So the whole thing is recorded. And this particular customer, these deals are enterprise deals. They take quite a while. They could even take up to 18 months. So all the way along those 18 months, there's recorded information. You know, it's almost like a deal rage, back and over, back and over. They have to record what they've done. Somebody in the vendor has to, you know, accept it, approve it. And then when the deal closes, you've got a complete track record. Did they tick all these boxes? Yes, they did. I'm going to pay them the full 12%. No, they didn't. They just done the introduction on day one and then they walked away. I'm going to pay them 6%. Okay. But
Like the idea.
without having some way to track and trace, you're dead right. You could be, you know, that's going to cause a lot of arguments down the road. I want my 12%, but, you know, well, you done nothing, mister. Prove I done nothing. I done everything, you know. So you have to have some kind of a process around it. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks.
I like the answer.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk more about it later.
Indeed, indeed.
So,
Okay.
Carol, I see we have you there on camera and everything. Hi, I know you submitted a question when you registered. Did you want to ask that, or would you like me to call it out for Kenneth's answer?
Call it out, because I don't quite exactly remember what I submitted.
I kind of thought that might be the case. All right. So,
Yeah.
Carol, you put in, and thank you for submitting a question. You said that we offer referral fees to our partners, and some insist they need to be a reseller, but the economies don't make sense. What do you think, Kenneth?
Yeah, I saw that question and I was praying.
Right. Let me give you a little slice here. So Bill.com is where I work. We automate accounts payable. And a mid-market, we started very small, medium business, and I'm now working in the mid-market with partners. And a contract, an annual contract, can be $10,000 to $12,000. So it seems to us to so much more make sense for them to give us referrals. We pay out when a referral closes, but we manage the sales process and the support. I'm hard pressed to see a partner making any money at all on selling a $10,000 deal if they have to sell it and support it.
Yeah, so I think you've kind of answered your own question, to be honest. And when I was looking at the spreadsheet this morning, you know, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's quite an unusual question in a way. We actually see it more the other way. We see more retail partners asking to become referral partners. I haven't actually heard of somebody trying to go the other way. So, you know, I honestly, I don't want to sound harsh, but I would just shut it down. I would just say, no, it doesn't make any sense, to be honest. It really doesn't. You'll spend a load of time. You'll spend a load of time and effort working with them, and then they'll decide it wasn't for them. You know, I'm pretty sure that's what happens. So, yeah, I know it's harsh, but yeah, no, sometimes is the right answer. So
that's fine. We're looking at all the resellers who sell mid-market ERP, and it's a finite number. And some of them just say, no, we absolutely we need to sell the deal and have the maintenance and everything. And I think you're right. We'll just have to say, well, thanks for playing along, but we're going to part ways now.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you can hopefully keep them doing referral business, but just it's not your model, so you can't, because if you start, it's a slippery slope. I would say I would stay clear of it. So it's just that the numbers aren't big enough, to be honest. They're just not big enough. So.
Yeah, that's what we think too.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, well, one kind of thing that's interesting, and it's a question. I'd be interested to see what other people think. It's a question for me rather than the other way around. Is, we see a lot of, and I'm not sure I've seen a trend in the market on this yet, but we do see. It goes back to the first question. As people move to the cloud, and you transition your partners, one of the things partners are kind of scared of is you will take away the renewal business. So I think, coming back to your program design, you need to keep that in mind, that you have to make a decision. I don't have an answer for you, but you do have to make a decision on a company by company basis. What are you going to do with renewals? Okay. My own kind of gut feeling on it is you should encourage the partners to retain the renewal business, because they're the ones that's got the relationship with the end customer. But I do see some vendors that are a bit greedy. They kind of say, okay, as soon as I get you onto it, I know exactly who you're selling to. I'll have all the end customer details and I'll start the renewal business. But I've seen a few of them fail dismally at it and fall out with the partners. Just something to kind of think about. I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer, but it's certainly an area a lot of vendors are really thinking strongly about, jumping in on top of the partners. So we will see how that plays out, I suppose. Sorry, Brenda, was there other questions there?
Yeah, so I see we have Mike from Zoom is in the breakout session as well. Mike, you submitted a question, so would you like to ask Kenneth, or would you like me to call it out?
I didn't submit any questions. Someone else submitted a question, actually. But thanks for calling me in.
Okay, we have it down anyway under your name for best practices and real life examples.
Yeah, I mean, effectively, I just wanted to hear from everyone here, everyone on the panel, like, if you've got specific examples of referral partner programs done well, specifically incentives. And we've got lots of referral partners who are signing on, but they get lots of incentives from other vendors as well. So I'd be really interested to hear about, it's just examples of other incentives which have worked. Because we can come up with a million different incentives, but the question is, what actually works, right? So I'd love to hear from your collective experience if you've had one incentive which really picked up interest, like, wow, this really worked well. So I'd love to hear from you, from everyone on the panel.
Yeah, just I suppose a really brief answer. Just in terms of running a referral program, it comes to, there's no exact answer, Mike. Sorry, but it depends on the business. It depends on the margin that's available. It depends on the size or the cost of the deal. I see people doing referrals anything from 6 to 10%. It just depends how much you've got to play around with. And there's definitely better and worse. Some renewal partners are in it all in. This is what they want to do. They're really good at it. They've got a really good database of end customers. Usually they were resale partners in the past life. So if you're profiling, that's definitely one attribute to look out for. Or are they just a consultant that knows end customers, not as good? The guys that sold before are generally the ones to kind of bring in at the top. Okay.
And I think another one, just to add on to that too, is it actually has to make sense to the partner or the contact that's at the partner to do that selling. If it's a low amount of money, is it even worth their time to go in and do anything with it? So it has to be something that really motivates them. And I from my previous company, I know we did something where the dollar amount was pretty low, like a $250 incentive to do this, where it's like, okay, cool, on a $100 million or $100,000 deal, that's great, $250 to do this, but it's not even worth my time to go in and fill out the paperwork for that dollar amount.
Yeah.
So I think that's another big thing to look at.
And then also the question I have is, in terms of incentives, is it better to incentivize the whole referral partner company with an extra percentage on their commission fee, or is it better to incentivize individuals with Amazon gift vouchers or whatever, like personal gifts, rather than extra percentage bonus margin or commissions?
Yeah, usually it's a bit of both. If you can target the right individual at the and it kind of comes back to if they've registered interest and what your pipeline looks like, and then you spiff very granularly those particular people, not just anybody. You go after them, and that generally moves the needle. Okay. Well, one other thing that just came to mind that I did see that was quite successful, it's on the referral type program. When you as a company offer a referral program and you specifically have referral partners, that you take those referrals and rather than working them yourselves, you give them to your better resale partners. They love it. You don't have to do all the work, or give it to your direct team. So it really, it's a kind of a win-win. The guy that referred it will ultimately get paid if it's successful, but you're encouraging your existing partner base. They love new opportunities, right? And then they, in turn, will farm that business down the road and keep them doing the renewals. So it's a bit of a longer journey, Mike, but I think it's one of the, if you're thinking long term, I think that's a much better strategy than the short term spiffs. Okay, Brenda, I'm a bit conscious of time. I'm happy to keep going, but questions, comments. Did you want to? Let's take another couple and see what people have to say, and then I think Emily wants us to do a survey, Brenda, as well.
That's right, yeah. So I see Liz from Micro Focus is on the call as well. So Liz had submitted a question when she registered, and she wanted to know what are some best practices to shift interest and mindshare to selling SaaS over traditional license and support.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. That's kind of one of the things I tried to cover at the start, because most people don't have the luxury of just starting from scratch. Everybody's doing a transition, or 99% of us are doing a transition. So we've worked with a number of companies to kind of do that. The biggest, just in short, the biggest one is the standard rebate. So if you're trying to migrate your resale partners from your on-premise products to your SaaS products, you really need to focus on things like at the program level, making it easier for them to get up the tiers to get the bigger discounts, and also then for the first year or two, really incenting them heavily at the company entity on your rebates, basically, up over and again, it'll come down to margin, but the ones that we've seen doing it are, in the order of 15 to 25%, very, very steep payouts for that first year or two, and then kind of transitioning them back to the, still double digits, but a lower rebate once they're over that kind of tight squeeze in terms of cash flow. So again, you're supporting the partners to get through the migration, which means you keep them on board in the long term. Okay, hopefully that helps. Happy to talk about it a bit more. We can always set up some time if you want.
Okay, great. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us today. I popped the survey link into the chat panel. So Emily would really appreciate if everyone could just kind of give their feedback in relation to how they found the session today between the panel and the breakout room. So I think the survey will only take 2 or 3 minutes to complete. So that would be great. As Emily mentioned earlier today too, this is the final of the virtual summer series. Although in Ireland today it's not very summery as it rains outside, but she will be in touch in the coming months just to organise something for later in the year, because more than likely the physical event won't be going ahead. So keep an eye out for an email from Emily.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yep. No, thanks, Brenda. Thanks very much, Jan. It was lovely to interact with everybody. There are a couple of questions still in the chat window. We will take note of those, guys, and get back to you if we didn't answer them here and now. Okay. And again, thanks to everybody for coming to the CMU event. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth. Thank you, Brenda.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.